Okay. I'm going. Hey guys, welcome to my Monday Night Live with Dr. Jarod, your online functional medicine holistic doctor, thinking outside the box for you, your questions, and your health. So, welcome. I got 3 cameras rolling, so I'll try to bounce to all of them. But this is the weekly session where I answer your health questions to the best of my ability. This is not medical advice for your specific case. This is general thoughts about health topics. It's meant to be educational, not a replacement for your meeting with your doctor. Okay, so every Sunday, I put a box on my Instagram story for you to submit your question. And then on Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time every week. If I don't happen to meet, I will post it. But every week, Monday night, 7 p.m., I answer your questions. So thank you very much for being here. Here we go. Okay, first question. Bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Is it safe and beneficial when hit very hard with perimenopause? So I typically try other things before bioidentical hormone replacement therapy because I like to fix the system, not flood the system. Bioidentical hormone replacement therapy floods the system with hormones. It doesn't fix the system that manufactures or creates them on its own. So in my opinion, menopause, I always tell my patients, is the great revealer, right? Or it enhances or illuminates a pre-existing hormonal imbalance or problem that was there before. So this is why I like my patients to order the Vibrant Wellness Hormone Zoomer test because before they hit menopause, because it will show the minutia of the hormonal imbalances that are occurring. Maybe they don't have any symptoms, but if we can catch it, fix it then, by the time they get to menopause, it's much smoother. Well, as smooth as menopause can be. So, however, if you need it to get through life and to function, then yeah, sure, use it to function while you fix the underlying issue. That's what I would do. So that's my thoughts on bioidenticals. I'm kind of on the fence about it because I think a lot of times people really do need them to get through life and they feel a lot better. And I'm not sure that the cancer risks associated with them are true or not. But I always think fix the factory, don't just flood it with new production. Okay, so next question. Things to consider postpartum or breastfeeding nutritionally. All right, so your body, you just built a baby, which is amazing. You assembled a human in 9 months. It's fully functioning, healthy, right? Your body is drained. So this is when you need to double down on those nutritionally dense foods like beef liver, egg yolk, fats, healthy fats like butter, ghee, olive oil, fish eggs. If you're into that, cod liver oil would be awesome too because you need the calories and you need the dense nutrition found in those food groups. So really focus on rebuilding. If you're looking for things to like support milk production, an herb that I like to recommend for that is actually gotu kola. Gotu kola helps, it's used in Ayurvedic medicine to help enhance lactation and milk production. But what's also cool about gotu kola is it's actually really healthy for scar healing and collagen formation. So for example, during birth, a lot of times it's very common for there to be some tearing or just scar tissue because of the process of birth. And so gotu kola is one of my favorite herbs for postpartum and breastfeeding times because it's not only going to help support the body's production of milk, but it's also going to enhance and reduce scarring after healing from potentially a traumatic birth process. But if you were under chiropractic care, the chances of your grade of tear being on the worst end is very, very, very low, which is pretty awesome. So that's something I would focus on, the nutritionally dense foods. So the beef liver, a really good food that I like to give my postpartum mamas is Cataplex B core. It's from Standard Process. It has nutritional yeast, beef liver, sweet potato, a bunch of like really dense, nutritious foods. That's awesome. And then if you're looking into like, if you're starting to experience like to prevent, or you're starting to experience postpartum depression, the product I like to use for that is Minchex. So it's kind of like that depressive, melancholic, flat feeling with like a bit of, it's like flat plus depression, right? Mintran is another product by them, and that's more like flat and anxiety, right? Which don't seem to go together, but it's like not quite yourself. So anyways, Minchex is a way to prevent and support postpartum depression. So that's what I like there. So yes, nutrient-dense foods, go to cola, and prevention. Someone asked for a crash course in autoimmunity. Cool. I love this question. So here's what if you remember anything about autoimmunity, just remember that all autoimmunity begins in the gut, right? And so basically what happens is we are basically hollow tubes, right? We have a big outside chamber, and that outside chamber actually goes down here, and this is still outside of us, right? Our gut is still outside. And so our skin and our gut are very similar, and the gut is very absorbent, and it's supposed to absorb. However, what can happen is you can get what's called leaky gut, which is a very popular, common thing talked about. But leaky gut is when those cells that are really tight together, that are supposed to absorb properly digested particles, begin to drift apart because they're just so irritated. The Velcro kind of starts to fray because there's so much chaos going on in there, right? So the Velcro starts to fray, the cells start to leak apart a little bit, and then what leaks through? Little bits of undigested food, maybe little bacteria, little antigens, little pathogens, whatever, right? And when that happens, it leaks from the gut tube into the blood, right? And when something is in the blood that doesn't belong, what happens? Your immune system activates and goes after it because it's like, you don't belong here, time to get rid of you, right? So that immune reaction is kind of the beginning of autoimmunity, and that's from a scientific concept called molecular mimicry. So molecular mimicry is basically like, say you have a little puzzle piece, you have a little piece of food that looks like, I don't know, like a spade, you know, like a 10 of spades or whatever. Think about like playing card shapes, right? It looks like a 10 of spades, so when it's floating around, and so the body's like, hey, you don't belong here, and it starts developing immune memory to attack anything that looks like a spade, right? So, and then it's going to get so kind of overly sensitized to what looks like a spade that it's going to attack. Anytime it looks like, oh, quick, that's a spade, and it might be a little too fast. So a famous example of this is basically gluten. Let's say it looks like, I don't know, a circle or a triangle, right? And that shape also is very similarly found in the thyroid tissue. So that's why when someone has thyroid autoimmunity or hypothyroid autoimmunity or Hashimoto's, the clinical instruction that I would give my patient is you need to avoid gluten, because if you're flooding your gut with gluten and it's leaking into your bloodstream, you're revving up that immune system to shoot down all the circles or triangles. And what also looks like that same shape? The thyroid. And the thyroid's going to get caught in this storm, and it's going to increase the autoimmunity. However, there's also another train of thought with autoimmunity where it's like the body doesn't attack itself. The body attacks something inside of itself. So a lot of times too, here's another root cause of, we're going to continue talking about thyroid autoimmunity because it's actually the number one autoimmune condition in the United States. 2 out of 5 women have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which means 2 out of 5 women are losing thyroid function. When you lose thyroid function, you have trouble going to the bathroom. You have trouble losing weight. You feel fatigued. You feel lethargic. You might begin losing your hair, right? These are all symptoms of thyroid: slow digestion, right? I feel like so many women are bloated or constipated when they come into my clinic. So when you're dealing with a thyroid condition, basically for this autoimmune thyroid, which is the most common, that's why I brought it up, there's different root causes, right? There's that autoimmune storm from the leaky gut, so from just toxicity and inflammation, right? So when we treat it, we need to just heal the gut, seal up those tight junctions or those Velcro attachments in the gut. And then we need to just calm down the inflammation and then also nourish the thyroid and give it a bit of protection. So it's always to kind of just like let things calm down, give it a little blanket to hide under until we can get everything chill, right? So that's one approach. Another approach is Epstein-Barr virus, which is also associated with chronic fatigue syndrome, because Epstein-Barr is also thought by many scholars and scientists to be a trigger to basically live inside the thyroid cell. And what does the immune system want to do? It wants to reach in there and grab out the virus and get it out of the body, right? Well, what's going to get damaged a little bit in the crossfire of this situation? The thyroid itself. So that's where a virus is thought to be a potential root cause of thyroid autoimmunity. So we talked about inflammation and kind of toxins causing autoimmunity. We talked about infection being autoimmunity as well. So those are things to consider when you're thinking about really any autoimmune case or condition. So that is, I guess, my bird's eye view crash course in autoimmunity. So whenever you're thinking about autoimmunity, it's like whether it's lupus, whether it's, I don't know, Graves' disease, what you name it, whether it's, a lot of times I'm dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, which is just autoimmunity to the joint, right? It's like, wait, what infection got deep into the joint that the body's trying to pull out, and how can I best assist the body to do that while also preserving the joint tissue, right? So that's something as well. And then with psoriatic arthritis, that has an autoimmune component. A lot of a really common autoimmune condition in children is actually eczema, right? A lot of people don't realize that that's actually autoimmune. That's an autoimmune condition that happens in the skin, that irritation, that inflammation, and that often happens post well visits when children get a big immune dose in their arm. It causes chaos in the immune system. The immune system wants to shoot everything that just got shot into the arm, and the skin gets caught in the crossfire. So look on the inserts. It's a very common side effect. So these are just some autoimmune conditions, and you should always think, okay, what triggered it? It was either an immune storm, right, or an immune problem or an infection problem that caused it, or is a ton of inflammation from something, from bad diet, whatever, and then toxicity. Okay, so that's crash course in autoimmunity. All right, someone says, if you guys are joining me, feel free to ask me questions live. I'm just going through my list until someone asks a question, and if you don't, that's fine, because I got about 12 questions that we may or may not get through today. So what is the most effective recovery plan after a ridiculous amount of antibiotics to treat a complicated UTI? All right, so UTI is super common in women, again. And basically, if you have a super stubborn UTI, you need to think about the bladder as an apartment building. Okay, you can think about the gut as this way too, or the oral microbiome, or the nasal passages. Everything on our body, including our skin, is a place for living things to exist. If you're having a recurring UTIs, even after antibiotics, what you're doing is you're kind of like going into the apartment building. You're basically dropping an atomic bomb on it, or it's kind of dramatic, but you're blowing everybody out of this building, but it's still there. It's still empty. It's still functional space, and people want to move in, right? Or pathogens want to move in. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the apartment building is full of people or tenants that we want living there. Most people know that there's a gut microbiome. If you don't, it might blow your mind even more that there's a bladder microbiome. But sometimes I ask my patients, I'm like, have you ever heard of a gut microbiome? And they're like, no. And I'm like, how have you not heard of a gut microbiome? Okay, I'm glad you're here. Let's get to work. But anyways, the bladder microbiome is also really important as well. So We want to make sure that the bladder is full of good and healthy and beneficial bacteria, because what they're going to do is they're going to stand there and they're going to put their arms up and they're going to make sure nothing else lives there, right? It's called, basically, they create occupational resistance. And when the apartment building is full, the bad guys have a harder time of latching onto the tissue, creating problems like UTIs or ulcers in the gastrointestinal tract or cancers eventually, right? So you need to have plenty of good flora in the gut and in the bladder and in the mouth, the sinus passages, and even on your skin, right? So probiotics everywhere. So that's what I would start, because first of all, if you had to do several ridiculous amount of antibiotics, I don't know if they did a culture. Did they actually kill the strain? And if they didn't, I would recommend herbs like golden seal, golden thread, uva ursi, cranberry. I like cranberry complex from Medier because it has cranberry and uva ursi in the same product. You can check the link in my bio for that if you like on Instagram. I also like uva ursi from Supreme Nutrition Products. That one's amazing. It's only like $30, and I have patients who take that pretty regularly, and it keeps their UTIs at bay. Golden thread is also Supreme Nutrition Products, and that works really well as well. So that's what I would try. Do some killing. The bladder loves vitamin C. The bladder is a big mucous membrane bag. So the herbs that support a mucous membrane are golden seal. So golden seal, think about anything with the mucous membrane. So like the inside of the lungs, the inside of the sinuses, the eyes, right? Because that's like a mucous membrane, or the inside of the bladder. So that will be really helpful to support the mucous membrane and kill off bad stuff. And then also vitamin C. Vitamin C really supports the bladder's integrity, because the bladder is like a slippery, mucousy skin, right? And vitamin C is really good for the skin. A lot of women are put on vitamin C serums on their face. So you want to do the same thing for your bladder. Give your bladder a facial. So that's what I was saying. Ooh, someone commented on Instagram, I didn't have to go on antibiotics because of you. Great feedback. Thank you so much. Miss you. Hope to see you soon. But yes, so do that. And then I would work on colonizing the bladder. And you colonize by colonizing, helping the bladder have a good microbiome. There's different products that can help with this. But I would eat a lot of fermented foods. You could get into like, I'm thinking like if you would want to do any type of like vaginal douching of some kind with a probiotic supportive element. That can get a little messy, but we can talk. I'm not going to go into all of that, but that is a possibility as well. So that's where I would start. Of course, everyone knows D-mannose and cranberry, so I don't really feel like I have to talk about that for UTIs, but that's an option as well. Okay, someone says, constantly clearing my throat feels like there's maybe mucousy consistency there. All right, so here's where I want to tell you about an amazing herb. It's called the snot buster, and it is called fenugreek. So it's often used in Indian cooking, and if you roast it just right, it has a maple syrup-like note to it. But fenugreek fits in there and helps break up that stubborn clots of mucus, and so that's what I would recommend for that if there's no current infection. So a really good product that would help with this, especially if there's some itchiness to it, is called Allerplex, Allerplex from Standard Process, and you can get that at the link in my bio, but on my full script. But Allerplex is great because it's going to support the lungs, it's going to support the sinuses, and it's going to support the body's response to really any overproduction of mucus, itchy eyes, itchy nose. It is like the broad spectrum get rid of allergic response, and it has fenugreek in it, which helps break up the snot. So that's that. All right, next question. On nights when insomnia kicks in, what have you found helps one fall asleep faster? Okay, a couple ideas here. So you could do box breathing. So if you know about that, it's like you breathe in for 7 or 8 seconds. You hold it for just as long, and then you breathe out for just as long. And what that does is that stimulates the vagus nerve and the parasympathetics to begin working harder. And when the parasympathetics rise up, your body begins to naturally calm down. However, if there's a couple of things, whenever we're talking about not being able to sleep, we need to think about minerals, we need to think about nervous system state, and we need to think about blood sugar. Those are the main things. And then also you could get into like the Chinese organ clock, but that's a little bit more than what I want to talk about. Nervous system. Are you in fight or flight? If you're in fight or flight, you're going to have a hard time sleeping. The best ways to get out of fight or flight are box breathing, chiropractic care in the upper neck or in the sacrum, going on a walk, a calm walk, just don't listen to music, watch your surroundings, relax, and then prayer meditation. So those are ways I would help to elevate the parasympathetics, get the body ready to go to bed, right? And then, of course, blue light blockers. People talk about that all the time, too. I'm not going to go into that. What else was I going to say? Minerals. So that kind of goes into nervous system state. If your body is like freaking out, if you're stressed, you deplete your minerals faster. And your nervous system runs off of minerals. Other things, too. But nerves use minerals to fire, basically. And so if you're depleted in minerals, you're going to have a lot of sputtering in the nervous system. And so you're not going to be able to relax. So that's why sometimes for my patients who can't sleep, I recommend something called Mintran, which is from Standard Process as well. It literally stands for mineral tranquilizer. Not in that you're going to lose consciousness, but that it's going to help you be tranquil, okay? So that's what I'd say. Also, blood sugar. Blood sugar has a lot to do with whether you stay asleep. So if you're falling asleep, but you're waking up kind of wide awake and you're like, oh my gosh, it's 3 a.m. or it's 2 a.m., why am I waking up? If it's not because it's related to the Chinese organ clock, it could be your blood sugar. So I would make sure that you're eating maybe a bit of protein, a bit of fat, preferably both, shortly before bed so that you can help sustain your blood sugar to be smooth and steady all night long. Because if your blood sugar starts to dip because during the day you're like a yo-yo with how your eating habits, and so your blood sugar spikes, right? Low blood sugar is just as bad as high blood sugar, because what we want is stability, a nice little wave, right? We don't want the we are not yo-yos, right? We don't function well that way. So if your blood sugar is crashing at night, what your body does, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want my brain to die. I need sugar. I need fuel from my brain. So let's create some cortisol, which cortisol raises blood sugar. It also reduces inflammation. It's the number one anti-inflammatory hormone in the body that your body makes. And it's secreted by the adrenal glands mostly. And so what it's going to do is going to bring up your blood sugar. But what does cortisol also do? It wakes you up in the morning. Right? So if your body is going into an emergency response, I have to keep the brain alive. Let's create some cortisol to bring up the blood sugar. But oops, I also woke me up, right? So that's something that you need to consider. So you can eat some protein or fat before bed to help create that gentle, sustained, slow digestive process. So you're trickle feeding your brain all night long instead of having that crash and that spike of cortisol. So that's what I would recommend for some insomnia. You could also try Kava. Kava Forte from MediHerb is really great, or Kava 75 from Gaia Herbs. Those are my two favorite Kava products. They studied them, and what's really cool is it actually enhances brain waves while you sleep. So it enhances your sleep. So it is non-drowsy. So you can actually take Kava for anxiety during the day and it won't make you fall asleep. But at nighttime, if you take it, it enhances the circadian rhythm. You fall asleep and your brain waves should be doing this, but it'll make them even bigger and more beautiful. That's where you do want a bit of a bigger wave. So because more healthy brain function while you sleep, it's not a bad thing. So there's a lot of concern out there. If you start Googling Kava, they'll be like, don't do it. It'll damage your liver. That's a very poor quality product. And that's why you have to be careful where you source things. And that's why I always stand behind the brands I recommend, because you'll be fine. So, all right. Someone's asking about a lingering cough. If it's a lingering cough, you could try Allerplex. I already talked about that earlier. But if it's a lingering cough, lingering, who knows how long that is. If we're talking months, right? There's a couple herbs that I would recommend, or herbal blends or products. Enfaplex, which is from Standard Process, really helps the body basically support the respiratory system. Emphysema, you might have heard, is a lung condition, right? So Emphaplex is for the lungs. So that's something to just give broad spectrum nutritional and immune support to what's going on. Another thing you can try is called Pulmico. That is Palma means lung, and co, I don't know, they just added that for a little branding flair. But Pulmico is a blend of herbs that helps your lungs actually heal the interior lining of them, which is really amazing. So I had a patient one time, he had, it was really sad. He had lung cancer, and he came in just looking for some pain relief because his lungs hurt so bad. And I put him on Cataplex ACP, echinacea, because it's an immune modulator. So whether the immune system is too high or too low, it brings it to the middle. So it's one of my favorite herbs for the immune system. And it's really great even for during pregnancy and lactation. So that it's safe, beautiful. Oh, echinacea. But anyways, so I put him on that, and then I also put him on Pulmico, and it drastically reduced his lung discomfort. It was amazing. I mean, it was either what I was recommending, or he's going to have to go on this drug that was like, I don't even know, $6,000 or $7,000 a month for just pain relief. And so I was able to help him for like less than $1,000 a month. So, which was expensive. I tried to keep it even lower than that for some people, but he was really desperate. So all that to say, I know lingering cough is not the same level as what I just talked about, but those are some things you could try. Someone asked me, did I get a new kitten? Well, see, I have a large cat named Theo. He's very big. Where'd he go? He's not near me, or I'd grab him for you. But he weighs about 32 pounds. He's a Maine Coon. He's very friendly. He's really quite the dog-like personality. And I really felt like he needed his own pet cat. So I got him a pet cat. So no, I do not have another pet cat, but my cat Theo has his own little cat. So, and she's a British short hair, and her name's Molly, and she bosses him around. So anyways, all right. Thanks for the fun social question. That was a good time. Question number 9. Everybody doing okay? How are we doing? Say hello. Lots of people have joined. That's exciting. Are there any questions on YouTube or anything? Probably not. We're still growing, guys. We're still growing. But hey, do not despise the day of small beginnings, right? That's how everyone starts. All right. Excuse me. Thoughts on GLP-1s? Do pros? Hey, Doc. My mentor, Doc. She raised me. She raised this chiropractor. She just said hello on Instagram. And there's Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa. Let's see. What was I saying? GLP-1s. Do pros outweigh the cons? Well, I can't answer this question because it's medication, right? So I don't. It depends on the person, right? It's like, does metformin, the pros outweighs the cons? Well, do you have diabetes? Do you have uncontrolled diabetes? Then if you do, maybe you should go on metformin. If you are pre-diabetic, no, I don't think you need to go on metformin, right? So that's a little hard to answer. But in general, here's how I view GLP-1s. Okay, GLP-1s are, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, are the injections that people are doing to help them lose weight, right? There's other benefits as well, like quieting the mind, or like calming anxiety, or even addictive behavior, or burning fat. You know, what else do they help with? That's pretty much all I can think of right now. But insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, right? So GLP-1s. Here's the thing. Here's natural medicine. Here's drugs or big pharma. Here's peptides or GLP-1s right in the middle, right? It's kind of like if there was a Venn diagram, they'd be the crossover between the two circles of health. They're not really natural. They're not really drugs. They are synthetic, but they are found in the body in natural forms. So it's like, what do we do with this, right? Here's the thing. If you're doing everything over here, if you're getting like if you're trying to lose weight, okay, we're just gonna use that as an example. If you're doing 15 to 20,000 steps a day, you're drinking a gallon of water a day, you're taking all the supplements I tell you to, you're eating, you're counting your macros, you're watching your calorie intake, you're managing your cortisol, your hormones are balanced, right? Those are all things that we can work on that need to be fixed for your long-term health. And I hope you would want to fix them before you just cover up the problem with an injection that drives your body to do something that it might not normally do in this unhealthy state over here, right? But if we've fixed your hormones, if we've fixed your stress, if we've watched your macros, if we're watching your micronutrients, I got you on great supplements. Honestly, you should start losing weight on your own. Okay. But if for whatever reason, like you just psychologically cannot do it and you need a little nudge, okay, sure. But when you do a GLP-1, it is my opinion that you do a lower dose. Go slow, because here's the thing. Most people that are doing the recommended dose, they'll go in, they'll get put on, let's say tirzepatide, for example. They'll get put on 2.5 milligrams of tirzepatide, which is there's semaglutide, which is Ozempic, and then there's tirzepatide, which acts upon 2 cellular receptors. And then there's the third one called retatrutide, which acts upon 3 cellular receptors, which this one is actually my current favorite if you have to pick one. But anyways, but say tirzepatide, they start at 2.5 milligrams a week. You do one injection a week. You do it each week. You do it for 2 weeks. Oh, no side effects? Okay, double the dose. Now you're up to 5 milligrams a week. You do that for 2 weeks. Oh, no side effects? Okay, now you're back. Now you're up to 7.5, right? So within like 2 months, you're at 10 milligrams a week. So I think that progression is way too fast, and I like to go a little slower. Because when you go that fast, yes, you will have rapid weight loss, but you will be losing, in my opinion, most of those people who are going that course are not in the gym lifting 3 times a week, preserving their muscle mass. And so at the end of the day, they've lost 40 pounds, but they've lost 20 pounds of muscle, 20 pounds of fat. I'm just throwing numbers out there. And so then when they go off of the shot, they have less internal fat burning engines, aka muscle, and so they're going to be worse off. They're going to gain the weight all back, and it's going to be even harder to lose the second time. So I think they are potent. I think they work, but I think you have to do it very, very strategically and carefully. Hi, Noah. Thanks for saying hi. Happy Monday, sir. That's my thought on GLP-1s. I like peptides. I like testosterone. I think sermorelin is cool. I like thymosin alpha-1. I like BPC 157, which everyone talks about. I like TB500. I think they're to be used appropriately is very, very cool. They're better than drugs. So anyways. All right. Low appetite and complaining of stomach discomfort when eating in 5 years old. In a 5-year-old. Probably just need some digestive support. So we need to regulate stress, because the calm nervous system is the vagus nerve that then supports digestive function. So if digestion isn't happening, there's either an infection, there's too much stress, so digestion isn't happening properly, or there is not enough raw material to have proper digestion. Like there needs to be more enzymes, there needs to be more stomach acid, whatever. Okay, so those are things I would look into. For a 5-year-old, I like Black Walnut Supreme from Supreme Nutrition Products to help just clear out any gunk in the gut. That can be really helpful. And then, of course, I would always do chiropractic care. Chiropractic care in kids is amazing because before a child is 2 years old, the entire blueprint of the adult brain is being laid, right? And the neurological city is going to be built upon this blueprint. Right. So we have a chance to make sure that all the electrical lines are right, all the sewer lines are right, all the roads, the traffic lights, whatever, are in the right spot so we can have a very functioning, perfect city. Right. But if trauma happens or whatever neurological trauma happens and there's a big crater in the city will be built around the crater. Right. And so that's why pediatric chiropractic is so amazing, because if you can set it right, that body will not have that crater to trip over for the rest of its life, right? So we know that even psychologically that a child is very impressionable, but neurologically a child is very impressionable as well. So chiropractic care for kids is always amazing because chiropractic care just makes sure that the city is perfectly organized, everything runs smoothly. All right, what do I recommend for someone who has anxiety and needs help with focusing? So that's when I would talk about Mintran. You could do kava for the natural anti-anxiety. You could also do, if you're having trouble focusing, like a little ADHD kind of moment, fidgety, whatever. That's where I would recommend something called OPC Synergy from Standard Process. I use that with all my teens or my kids that have a hard time focusing in school. And all the moms, I have moms that won't let me take their kid off of it. So it works quite well. And then healthy fats. If you're having anxiety, eat more protein, eat more fat. Okay, if that can be in alignment with your health goals, because protein and fat provides depth of nutrition to the body and stability so that it doesn't fluctuate as much, right? Anxiety is a flutter. It's a flutter of the nervous system. And so what can we do to bring a grounding to the nervous system so it's walking steadily and not fluttering as much? Ashwagandha, I like ashwagandha forte from MediHerb. That brings and builds tone and strength to the nervous system, right? So instead of it being like a fragile spider web waving in the wind, it becomes like a guitar string over time, and then a branch, right? It's more resilient. And there are herbs that bring literal nutrition and resilience to your neurology, which is amazing. And then if you want to just make sure everything's being laid down right, you want to comb through the tangles of your wired and fluttery nervous system, that's when you get adjusted. All right. Last question, because I don't think I had any other ones. What are my thoughts on cold plunges? This goes back again to the nervous system. So are you in sympathetic? Are you in parasympathetic? Are you in fight or flight? Are you in rest and digest, right? When you go into a cold plunge, it stimulates your body to use the fight or flight or the sympathetic freak out side of the nervous system. Yes, that you will create more mitochondria on a cellular level, which is great for fat burning. Yes, you will, it'll wake you up. You'll feel motivated, right? But you have to think, is my nervous system resilient enough? Does it have enough tone? Is it beefy enough to handle this extra stress, right? If you're already like a mom with young kids or, just lost your job or you're working and hardly sleeping, in my opinion, this is not the best choice for you. I would rather you turn to heat, like sauna or a hot shower, right? Nourish and calm the nervous system. If you're already over here most of your day, we don't need to be here again. Okay. Some of us are cortisol addicts. And so, there's more ways to get more mitochondria than just cold plunging. Red light and infrared saunas stimulate mitochondrial function as well. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Do cold plunging when you have a lot in the tank. If you don't have a lot in the tank, fill up in the sauna. Okay. Thanks, guys, for joining. That's my Monday Night Lives with Dr. Jarod. I'll see you next week. Submit your questions. Comment below. That's because I'm going to post this if you have questions for next week. But pay attention to my stories on Instagram. That's where we will definitely get your questions, and I'll talk about them next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.